to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along.
Today is May 9th, 2013. I'm Judy Menger at the Warhawk Air Museum in Nampa, Idaho. I will be interviewing Ruel Barrus for our Veterans History Project in partnership with the Library of Congress. Our camera operator today is Jan Peterson. Welcome to the Warhawk, Ruel.
Thank you.
Would you please state your full name?
Ruel Hale Barrus,
Your address?
5022 Mountain View Drive, Boise, Idaho, 83704.
And what's your birth date?
My birthday is April the 20th, 1925.
What branch of the service did you serve?
I served in the Army.
And what were the years and dates?
I served in the Army in days from October.
October 43.
Excuse me. From October and 1943 until December 1945.
Well, we thank you for coming in today to tell us your story, and we look forward to hearing it. So, Ruel, where were you born?
I was born in a little community outside of Blackfoot, Idaho.
And then, what was the name of the town?
Groveland.
Groveland.
Groveland was the name of it.
What did your dad do there?
My dad, he was a farmer at first until 1928, and then they lost their farm, and then after a while he became a Idaho State game warden.
Did your mom work?
She just worked at home, and she worked very hard.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers.
And where were you in the mix?
I was the next to youngest one. I had 5 older sisters, and they took care of me and taught me lots of things.
Where did you go to school in Groveland, or did you have to go to Blackfoot?
I went to grade school in Groveland, and the school was just across the street from our home there, so I didn't have to go very far.
Was it a one room, or did it have individual classrooms?
It had individual classrooms, but all 8 grades were in the school there.
So you went through eight grades there. So when you went into high school, where did you have to go?
I had to go to Blackfoot, which was the city of Blackfoot, which was 3.5 miles away to high school, and I rode the bus.
Now, were you in high school when Pearl Harbor was attacked?
I was a sophomore in high school when Pearl Harbor was attacked.
Tell me what you remember about that day.
That day I was that happened on a Sunday, and that day I was at the New Art Theater in Blackfoot with my girlfriend, and after the movie was over and we came out, we heard about Pearl Harbor at that time from people on the street were telling us about it.
What did you think?
That was the that was the time when World War II really became important to me, or when it started for me was that day, because that was very important thing, because what we talked about was we've been attacked. The United States has been attacked, and so the World War II became very important to us there and in school.
Mm-hmm.
In school also.
Did you start learning about other countries and what was going on?
It wasn't very long after that when I listened to President Roosevelt's speech that night when he said that we were declaring war on Japan, And then just a few days later, we declared war on Italy and Germany. And so patriotism really became the thing, you know. Man, everybody talked about it. At school, we talked about it. And in high school, there were representatives there from the Army and the Navy telling us about their different programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the Army had an ASTP program they called Army Specialized Training Program. The Navy had one like that, and the Marines had one, and they were all trying to get us to sign up for their different branches of service.
Was that new after the war started, or had they had that in the school before?
They had that in the school, but it became way more important,
Mm-hmm.
and they were more active after that. And of course, we were more interested then, and it wasn't a matter of us as sophomores. It wasn't a matter of if we were going into the service. It was a matter of just when we were going,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And quite a few of the fellows several anyway, after Pearl Harbor went ahead and enlisted at 17, right out of high school, because they could get into the Navy at age 17. But
So I'm sure in Blackfoot, Idaho, before this happened, you weren't really too concerned about what was going on overseas, in Europe, with the Nazis and Hitler. You probably didn't think much about the strife over there, did you?
oh, we thought quite a bit about it, because I think it was because of my father. He was very interested in it,
Okay.
And we were able to hear about it on the radio, you know,
Mhm.
and we listened to the radio about the war, and
So your dad was
so
very
So he was,
concerned.
concerned about
Mhm.
it.
So you managed to you graduated from high school?
Yes, I graduated from high school, and I graduated from high school, and my birthday is in April, and the draft board there. Going back a little bit, I had worked for the Forest Service
Mm-hmm.
for one summer when I was 17 there, and then again, my birthday was in April, and so the draft board told me that I could work for the Forest Service that summer and go into the Army in September. So that's what I did that summer.
Why did you choose the Army?
I chose the Army because I tried to get into the Air Force, and I couldn't get into the Army Air Force because of I couldn't pass the eye test there. So I settled, but I did pass the representatives of the Army Specialized Training Program gave us tests, all kinds of tests when we were there as seniors, and I passed the test for the Army Specialized Training Program, and so that's why I went into I had passed it, and the Army Specialized Training Program was, we were to go to basic training for 13 weeks in Fort Benning, Georgia. And then after the basic training, we were to be assigned to a college and go to college for 2 years under an Army Specialized program and become some kind of Army technicians,
Mhm.
like the Army engineers or something like that.
Were there other friends of yours at the same time going in together?
Oh, a couple of them went into the Navy, but I was the only one that went in locally there into the ASTP program. So
So you finished your work with the Forestry Service, Then what happened?
I left on a Greyhound bus from Blackfoot there with my. I'm getting too emotional about this. Anyway, I left on a Greyhound bus there with my family, my mother and father, and my brother, and my girlfriend.
Same girlfriend?
Same girlfriend. That they're standing on the curb telling me goodbye, you know. So, and then I went to Fort Douglas in Utah, and that's where I was sworn in to the Army. Very shortly after that, I left on a train to Fort Benning, Georgia, and that was kind of exciting because 300 miles was the farthest I'd ever been away from home, you know. And so this was kind of new, getting on a train heading across the United States. So, and
anything happened on the trip?
Yeah, one pretty neat thing, exciting thing happened on the trip. The first time I ever got in trouble with the military police was on my first trip, and there were 7 of us traveling together from Fort Benning, Georgia. And we stopped at the train depot in Kansas City, and it was a big depot there, and lots of trains were pulling in and out, and our train stopped there, and they told us it was going to be here for a while. But we looked across, and there was a place to get food over there. We could see in the depot because the door was open, and we thought we need to get over and go to that food place, you know. And there were trains coming and going between us and the cafe. But one train pulled in there and stopped, and it stopped, and the doors opened on the trains. And in those days, they were built, the train cars were built so that you could just, when the doors were open, you could walk up the steps on one side, step a few steps across the car, and then down on the other side. And right through that, we could see this cafe over there. So 3 of us decided we're going over and get us something to eat. So, and we went over there, went up one side of the car, this car, and down the other side. And what we didn't know about it was that it was a troop train, you know. So we jumped down the other side and started running toward the cafe. And about that time, the whistles started to blow, and lots of commotion, and three or four big Army security guards. What do you call them?
MPs.
MPs grabbed us, grabbed us over there. They thought we were running away from the Army. They thought we were running away from the troop train. We didn't know it was a troop train. But anyway, we finally got it settled with some embarrassment when they personally took us back to the other train, and so some of the other people on the train thought that was pretty funny, but we got it squared away after they looked at our orders that we had. So. And then we arrived in, at that time it took 4 days to travel from Salt Lake City to Fort Benning, Georgia in a train. So we arrived in, the way I remember it is I arrived in Fort Benning amongst completely new country that I had never seen before, and amongst Army personnel of mean sergeants and crooked sergeants. Anyway, that's how my life started in Fort Benning, Georgia.
So how did you do in basic? Did you do okay?
I did well. I did well in basic. I had my father was a fish and game officer there, and I had been out a lot with him. I had shotguns a lot. I was pretty familiar with that, and so I got along especially well on the rifle range out there. But I also was pretty active in athletics, so I did well in the obstacle course and those kind of things. So I got along quite well. One of the things that happened with our sergeant that I mentioned, we had a drill sergeant was the meanest man that I've ever met. One day, our first sergeant of our company, who's your supposed to be your friend to take care of all your problems, and you go to, if you have any problems, you go to your first sergeant. And he said one day, I know you've been crawling in the mud, and I'm sure a lot of your watches are not working there. So if you just put your name on them and put them in this bucket up here at the office, well, I'll take them down to the jewelry and get them repaired down there and get them back. So when he got through, I guess there was about a bucket full of watches up there because everybody's watches was not running. So what did our first sergeant do? He took all the watches down and hawked them at the hawk shop down there and got the money out of it and went AWOL. So we found out about him, and but after a while they caught up with him and brought him back and court-martialed him. And
so how long were you? You were 13 weeks?
13 weeks.
So did you go to college?
Excuse me?
Did you get to go to college?
Yes, right. Yeah, right. I'll come to that now. What happened, as soon as our 13 weeks were finished, they called us out to the company street that morning. We thought we were all going to get our orders to go to college and all excited about where we were going to get to go. And he was happy to make this announcement. This was our main drill sergeant. He made our announcement there. He said, we have some news for you. The ASTP program has been canceled, and you're all going to the 94th Infantry Division. And this is what we had been working against in all our efforts. But then he said, you'll be leaving today, and we had actually had our small backpacks on, just so that you'll never forget me. I'd like all of you do 50 push-ups with your packs on. So that's anyway. We then left for Camp McCain, Mississippi, to the 94th Infantry Division.
How long were you there?
We trained in the Camp McCain, Mississippi, for about 6 months, 6 or 7 months. Mm-hmm. We trained there.
So when did you find out you were going to Europe?
It happened in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
There were two ships that England had, the Queen Elizabeth and the Queen Mary, and they were ships that they ran before the war. They just were transportation back and forth from England and they were very fast ships. Nothing could keep up with them, and At that time, there were quite a few German U-boats working the area, but those two ships did not. They were going too fast that they couldn't. Nobody could keep up with them to support them there as escorts. So they went across. They went back and forth across the ocean, but they went on a zigzag course there, so that it was difficult for a U-boat to track them or tell where they were going, you know. So, and we landed in Scotland, and then went by train from Glasgow down through Scotland down to an area just out to London, and we were just camped. Then we were just camped in a pasture or an area there in our pup tents, a short distance from London, and we were there for a couple of weeks. And at that time, we got to experience something that the English people were putting up with. That was Hitler's buzz bomb, which was kind of a forerunner of some of the other rockets that he was developing. But the buzz bomb was kind of interesting. It was just a small airplane that was just fly by itself, and it carried a bomb, and they launched it somewhere in France over there, and they knew exactly how much gasoline to put in it so that it would crash in the London area, and then the bomb would go off, but you could hear the motor in this little plane up there. So the English people were pretty darn tough. They had made all kinds of bomb shelters in the London area, and we got a pass. Two of my friends and I were given a pass to go into London one day, and we were walking around in London, and all at once we noticed the people were paying attention, and they could hear this plane, and they all stopped and watched the little plane up there, and as soon as the motor quit on it, they could hear it stop, you know. They all ran to a bomb shelter there, so we got to do that. We ran with them to a bomb shelter there. But that was pretty interesting. We stayed in there a couple of weeks, about 2 weeks before we were loaded on ships to go across the Channel. And this was 2 months after D-Day, but the Americans or the English, either one, did not have any ports over there where they could unload ships. So we had the privilege of stopping out in front of Utah Beach and crawling down the rope ladders on this side of the ship with my rifle and my pack, and then loaded into landing barges, and then I got to wade ashore on Utah Beach, which was a kind of a memorable thing, because we realized how many people had been killed on Utah Beach.
And it was all cleaned up by then, or?
It was all cleaned up
Wow.
by then, and the beach was, we didn't have anybody shooting at us like those other did. But then we moved. That was the first time that our unit was in was in combat, was in the hedgerows in France. At that time, when the army had, and the tanks had kind of been stalled because of the hedgerows that no one had anticipated there, and that slowed down the tanks, the tank drive that they were planning on making to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And they I think the story is a hedgerow were actually fences and property lines of the people that had been living here for, I don't know, 1,000 years. And they had grown up grown up in big trees and bushes and everything, so it was a really and dirt in them, so the tanks could not go through them, the tanks that we had. And they our military people hadn't planned on that. But a farm boy out of somewhere in the United States who was in the tank crew, he said that what you need to do is put some forks on the front of those so you can run them into the bank and lift the bank out of the way, you know. And so the tank people, the Army did that. And so that's the way that Patton and the rest of them were able to get out of the hedgerows there. But we were in the hedgerows for a while, and one of the things we had to do there were night patrols. And I hated night patrols worse than anything I had in there. You blackened your face and everything, and you went out, the 4 or 5 guys went together on a night patrol, and you were pretty sure somebody wasn't going to come back, and it was, I didn't like that.
But did you lose a lot of people?
You what?
Did you lose a lot that way?
Not a lot. We lost some, we didn't lose a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we didn't have very many of them, but that's one of the close calls I had, that I thought Heavenly Father was looking after me with a machine gun. We tripped something out there that lit up the field that we were in, and then they had a machine gun set up that was to cover the whole field there, and so that was a pretty close call. So but anyway, then from there, our unit shortly after that was sent to the Normandy Peninsula, which is a peninsula of France that's bordered by water on 3 sides. I guess that's what a peninsula is. Anyway, and what we were told that there were 6. It was a place where Patton had gone across France and cut off all the soldiers that were on the one side on the peninsula up there, and they said that there were 60,000 German soldiers and some artillery up there. So they had the Allied forces had established a line across there to keep the 60,000 soldiers up in the peninsula there, and they didn't have a lot of ammunition to fight their way out, except they had artillery up there. And so we were sent up there on a line across there, and we had we dug in up there so that we had I need to stop for. Can I stop for a minute?
Absolutely.
What happened is they had us dig foxholes, rural foxholes, all across this area that was several miles across to keep these 60,000 German force up there, and so we and of course infantry soldiers go together, and they have a buddy. You always have a buddy with you. He's looking after your back, and you're looking after him. And when he's asleep, why you're awake. And my buddy was Arthur Prosco, and he was a big, strong fellow from Chicago up there. Kind of an interesting guy. He grew up in Calumet City of Chicago, which is mostly a city of taverns there, and he lived. His parents and he lived in the upstairs of a tavern, and he used to tell me that when he was growing up, why sometimes after his parents put him to bed, he would sneak down to the top banister so he could see what was going on down in the pub. And he said after he got a little bit older, why he recognized what was going on, and he said he had seen Al Capone come in several times, and his father would pay him off so they could keep their saloon open there. So he was kind of a tough guy, but anyway, he was a good partner, and so he and I were in this foxhole together, and what they had us do is make the foxholes large enough for two, because they knew we were going to be there for a while. The Americans had decided they were not going to go any farther there because they'd be fighting in towns, and they didn't have enough, at that time, they didn't have enough forces to be able to to make another front there, because they were recall that about that time why Patton was running out of gas and other equipment, so we were just positioned there to stay there and watch. And we had an area in front of us which was open. They had picked out an open, and in our section anyway, we had picked out an open area. So we were about 200 yards from the German line over there where they were, and they apparently didn't have any small arms ammunition, so they could shoot at us, or they didn't want to, and so we didn't have any activity that way. But they shelled us with artillery 2 or 3 times a week. Why, they'd fired just so many rounds of artillery at us, and but the problem with it, they didn't have an observer. They couldn't tell where they were hitting down there, or maybe they were intentionally missing us because they didn't want us to attack. I don't know that, but they shot artillery at us every 2 or 3 times a week, which kept us worried all the time, because these artillery shells, when they hit over there, they were big ones. They'd make a hole in the ground twice as big as your foxhole, so you knew what was going to happen if they hit your foxhole. Anyway, the one interesting thing about that time, why the Free French became active in the war effort there, and I think these were part of a new French army that maybe they had been liberated from somewhere. I don't know, but anyway, some Free French came up there, and our people assigned them part of this line, and Prosco and I drew the point where we were the closest to our foxhole was here. The next foxhole over was the Free French, so we were right next to them, and they were the wildest bunch. We were afraid to get out of our foxhole at night. They were wild over there. They'd shoot at night, and we had a better chance of getting killed from the Free French than we did the Germans over there.
So how long were you there in that area?
We were. I think this is the biggest contribution that our division, at least for a while anyway, that our effort. We were up there for 3 months. 3 months living in the same foxholes up there, and no beds to sleep on or anything like that. And we eventually got it a little more comfortable in there. We put part of a top over to kind of help us in the rain, but that was kind of a long time to stay up there and do that. But
Then what happened?
one
To
day,
move you.
Oh, okay. Well, one day when my company sergeant came down there to see how we're getting along, why one of the Free French captains over their group came up there, and they had a farmhouse. The French had a farmhouse back there that they had confiscated where they stayed. Some of them stayed back there. And my sergeant, anyway, the French captain, came up there and invited my sergeant to have dinner with him that night. There was no way our sergeant was going to go out with those wild guys down there. But I was standing there, and the fellow that was with him was there, and he said, "You and you go with him," So he sent me back to have dinner with him that night. We got back there. There was a big roast going on in their spit back there, and they had French bread and chestnuts cooking there, and we all, the two of us that went back there, man, we enjoyed that because we've been living on rations all this time, and the captain. But those fellows were, they were kind of ornery and mean, and we'd taken our rifles with us because we weren't taking any chances with them. So, but that was kind of interesting. From there, this was December, maybe a little before December, when the Americans or the Allied found out something was happening, and Germany, Hitler was planning his Battle of the Bulge there. He was planning that, and so they sent us up. The history books say that the Allied people had got together all the infantry divisions that they could find, and sent them up there, and ours was one of them. We were back, our company was back in reserve for a while there. It was beginning, this was in December, and it was getting cold, and they issued us some sleeping bags, the old Army sleeping bags, and they were sleeping bags with a head, what do you call that?
Mummy?
Mummy type bag. And my partner, Prosco, was a big heavy-set fellow, and his just barely fit. we were up there quite close to the front lines, and they told us, so you don't have to dig in tonight, but everybody's to be quiet and not make any sound, and no lights. About the middle of the night, and Prosco and I were in our little pup tent, where an infantryman carries just half of his pup tent.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not very big. About half of the night, where Prosco started yelling and kicking and get me out of this blankety blank thing, and all the sergeants kept yelling, I didn't tell you guys shut up, and he was yelling, get out of there, and pretty quick he kicked so hard he had the tent down on top of us too. But I finally got him shut up, and what had happened, he had gotten his cap around behind, turned in his face so he couldn't breathe or anything, and he was, anyway, that was, okay. Am I going too slow here?
Well,
I want to tell you about the interrogation and that.
yeah.
So anyway.
Okay.
So where were we? Okay.
You're
Gonna ask me a question.
so you're you're in pup tents,
Yeah.
close to the
Okay.
front line.
Okay. Very shortly, one afternoon and evening, where they told us we were moving up to the front, and by the time we got up there, it was dark, and they told us we were to take a new position on the Maginot Line there. So we were replacing a unit that had been there, that was there. So we did this in the dark up there, and they kept telling us, stay right on the trail here. This is a minefield you're going through, so don't go off. So what I did, just follow the person in front of me, and we went up and we took this position on the Maginot Line there, which was a series of foxholes up there, and also underground bunkers where the personnel slept in the bunkers, and then they took turns going out to the foxholes out there. And our plan was, they told us after we got there, the sergeant told us we would be in the foxholes out there for 2 hours, and then we could rotate that way, and then come down inside of the bunker. And it was very, very cold. There was snow on the ground. We were in our dark uniforms, and the Germans were in white clothes out there, so they could see us pretty darn easy. While we were moving in there, they were having a mortar barrage. The mortar shells were falling all around us. They apparently had heard some commotion, and they knew something was going on, but because they started going after us with mortars there. We were able to get into our locations down there, and then the assignments were made on who were going into the foxholes first, and my turn was later. I wasn't the first ones or the second ones in there. The next morning, it was still dark early in the morning. We heard all this commotion and going on out there, and those of us ran up, grabbed our rifles, and anyway, I grabbed my rifle and a couple of grenades that I had there close, and ran up the steps just in time to, there was a lots of commotion, and a German burp gun was going off in my ear. I didn't know where he was. I threw a grenade in that direction, and about that time another machine gun went off, and the sergeant told us, get back in, go back down and get inside. You know, all of us ran back and got inside. We couldn't tell what was going on out there, and anyway, so we all did. Went back down inside of the bunker there and closed the door. As I look upon it now, I guess I think we all would have been killed if we had stayed out there any longer, but that turned out to be a mistake, I guess. Anyway, we went down inside the bunker and we stayed in there. And the first thing the Germans came up and said, wanted us to surrender, and our sergeant said no. And then they tried to set some charges off on the top of our bunker there to blast us out, and that didn't work. The bunkers were too strong. Then they built some fires out there and tried to smoke us out, and we plugged up the vents there with our coats so they couldn't smoke us out. Eventually, maybe it was about noon or sometime after noon, we heard one of our sergeants yelling out there, and so we opened a little slit where you could see out of there, and they had him out there, and the Germans had him, and he was talking to us and told us that they were going to shoot him there if we didn't come out. So our sergeant said, "What do you guys want to do?" And well, we said, "I guess we don't want to see our sergeant shot out there in front of us, because they'll probably shoot him, and then they'll bring another one up there too." And so we decided that we'd come out. So the first thing we did was destroy our ammo and rifles down there so that they couldn't use those. And then it came up I don't think I volunteered for this, but I was the first one that came up the steps there with my hands over my head up there and going up the, excuse me, going up the steps, and at the top there was a German soldier up there with a burp gun. As soon as I got to the top, he jabbed a burp gun in my ribs and pointed to a dead German soldier that we had killed that was laying there at the top of the steps. And I thought, it's all over for me. But he didn't pull the trigger on the burp gun. They kind of herded us as a group down to the other prisoners that had surrendered down there, and we started walking toward an area where they had an old truck over there. And as I passed on the way over there, where there was one of our fellows from our platoon that was laying there in the snow, and he was crying, and he was wounded, and he just was crying and saying how cold he was laying there in the snow, and I couldn't stand it, so I took my overcoat off and covered him up down there, and then went over to the truck where they were. We were over there for a little while, and they started loading us on the truck, and about that time somebody handed me my overcoat. I don't know who it was or when it happened, but he handed me my overcoat, and I think it probably saved my life, because later we sort of lived because we had our coats on. It got so cold, so. And from there, one thing that dawned on me right then, this truck they took us in was an old steamer, and it ran on wood, there. And I thought, at that time it came to me, I think we're going to win the war. The Germans were using trucks that took wood to run them. So from there they took us I don't know how far, a few miles back behind the lines where they had, there's a group of buildings there, and put us in the buildings. And then they started taking us out one by one to be interrogated. And when it came my turn, in the meantime, I didn't tell you, but in the meantime, while the German soldiers took all of our jewelry, if you had any watch or anything like that, where they took all of those, and when it came my turn, the fellows we were in the room there, and they'd just take one at a time, and then they'd go in, and then we'd never see him before. We didn't know what happened to him or anything.
While you're talking, I want to show the area that you were taken prisoner at.
Okay. While we're talking.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. And anyway,
Right in there. So they were interrogating you.
yeah, they were interrogating us and taking us out one at a time. And when it came my turn, it was quite surprising to me. I shouldn't say it was scary, but it was quite surprising. There was a German sitting at a table there that looked just like the ones I had seen in the movies there. He had a big German hat on, and he had a big German cap on, just like I had seen in the newsreels, and sitting behind him there was a big swastika. Behind him.
Mm-hmm.
She shook me up a little bit, I guess. I started walking across there with the guard. The guard had picked me up. Started walking across there, and the guard looked down at my overshoes and said, "Give me your overshoes." Poked me with his rifle and give me your overshoes. And I just said no. I kept walking and got partway over, and he poked me again and give me your overshoes. And this big voice came from the table over there. The guy that was the German that was sitting behind there that was going to interrogate me. Give him your overshoes. You know? So I did. I took them off and gave them to him. And then the interview over there, he was very pleasant for a while. I guess this is our technique. It's very pleasant. He tell me about himself and how much he liked the United States, and how much he liked the Northwest up there. And he said he had graduated from the University of Washington up there, and he was planning to go back there after the war because he liked it so much. And he was very pleasant about, and they tried to give me something. I told him no, and then he asked me a question about, so far I hadn't said anything. He asked me a question about our outfit there, and soldiers swear an oath before they go into battle that they don't tell anything about. They give them your name, rank, and serial number, you know. So I did that. I said that first class, anyway, private Ruel Barrus 399200731, you know. And so he asked me another question. Says, you need to talk to me. Ask me another one. PFC Ruel Barrus 399200731. And about that time he got mad. He just changed altogether. got mad, and he said, "This guard is going to take you out and shoot you if you don't talk to me." And he asked me another question, and about that I got to thinking, I'm a PFC, I don't know anything, why would they shoot me, and asked me another question. I told him the same thing. And so he said, "Well, I guess I won't have you shot out there, but the guard's going to take you out there and strip your clothes down, and you'll set you out there in the snow until you decide you're going to talk to me." Anyway, I said again I wouldn't answer again to him, and so the guard did that, took me outside in the snow and had me strip my clothes down to my waist and just stood there by me and left me out there. I got awfully cold out there, and then but I think maybe what saved me was pretty darn cold. I think the guard got cold too. he was out there fussing about it, and then he took me back.
Okay, go on.
He took me back inside, and I went up to the desk, and he asked me another question, 399-20731, and he just said, "Get me out." He told to the guard, "Get him out of here," like he was upset.
Okay, wait a minute. We've only got to just come inside from the cold.
Just come inside from the cold, and he took. Did you get that part where he told the guard, get him out of here? Okay, I'm ready then.
Okay, so then what did they do after that? After he said, "Get you out of here"?
They took us then the next day. They took us to a prison camp near Limburg, Germany, in some trucks. And Limburg, the town of Limburg, was an industrial town, and it had been just flattened by the bombing there. But there was one warehouse, great big warehouse there that hadn't been touched, and that's what they were using for a prison camp. So they put us in the warehouse there, and they had some straw around the edge of it for us to sleep on. But the problem with the straw was it was infested with lice, and pretty quick we had lice crawling in our hair and in our head, and so we used to sit around like monkeys picking the lice out of our hair, and they had us work there. We had to go out and work and build a big sign out there that said POW, so that the bombers wouldn't bomb the POW camp there. And then right next to it, while we filled sandbags and built an fence around anti-aircraft guns so that they could shoot at the bombers, and hoping the bombers wouldn't bomb the POW camp. So after a while there, I got sick. My legs swelled up, and I was pretty sick. And about that time, they told us that we were going on a march to another prison camp. So I decided I better go on the march. I don't know if I can make it or not, but I know what's going to happen to me if I stay here. So anyway, we started. They gave us, at that time, they gave us a Red Cross box that we could use for food there and carry it with us and use for food. And they told us, I think they told us then we'd be walking for 5 days, and that's what we did. We started out walking, and it was cold and snowy, and carrying this Red Cross box. A lot of the fellows did not make it. My friend John Bachman, who walked alongside of me, one day he just fell down. He couldn't go any farther, and they dragged him off in the snow at the side. That's the last time I ever saw John there. And then after the 5th day, well, we arrived at Bad Orb, which is the prison camp. When we got there, we thought maybe things would be better. The first thing they did was they had a kind of a big building there where we went in one end, took all of our clothes off, and then they ran us through the showers there. So that was the first and only shower we got as a prisoner of war. And then when we came out the other end, they had run our clothes through a oven of some kind and killed the fleas. So we were glad of that. They assigned us to barracks, and they were kind of typical barracks buildings there, except they didn't have any facilities. We had no beds, we had no bedding. That's all we had to survive with in the cold air was our own overcoats, and in order to, and there was a hardwood floor to sleep on, no mattresses, no blankets, nothing, and we figured out a way to keep warm at night. 6 of us would lay down together as close as we could on our side and huddle up, and then every hour we'd rotate one so the guys on the outside could get warm. There was quite a bit of sickness there, and there was usually a burial detail every day while we were there. For food, we got a cup of soup, mostly water, that was made out of cabbage leaves, occasionally a piece of horse meat in it. They said I never did get one, but we got one bowl of soup a day and a loaf of bread for 8 of us. And the problem was we have 8 of us were starving, and we got this one loaf of bread. How are we going to get it cut into? So we started arguing about the guy that was cutting the bread, and so we came up with a plan here. Okay, it's your turn to cut the bread each day. So you're complaining about it. You cut the bread today, but guess what? You get last pick of the pieces there. So we solved that problem about fighting over it. So every day, whoever was complaining, he got to cut the bread. So and we worked it out that way. Let me stop for a minute, please.
Mm-hmm.
The fellows that went after the soup, or 2 of them, would go down to the kitchen and bring back a big bowl of soup for all of us in the facility in the barracks there, and we found out that these guys were stealing soup between the kitchen and coming up there, bringing the soup to us, and so we had a court. We appointed a judge and a court and a jury. The jury was made up of six starving men. Anyway, we had a jury. We convicted them, and then the penalty was that 2 of them sat out in this company street the rest of the time we were up there. And we got a couple of hammers from the Germans, and they spent their time out there making little rocks out of big rocks the rest of the time they were in there. And that was our jury. And about that, the facilities there, I didn't describe how bad the facilities were in the room there. They had they had cut a hole in the floor up there for us to use as a restroom, and there was one faucet of water, which they kept on part of the time, and that's what kind of made us nervous. The water was only on part of the time there, but And about this time, the things that kept us going there, we could hear the American bombers coming over every day. I don't think there was a day when I was there that we couldn't hear the bombers flying over. And one day, while we heard some artillery shells down there that was abnormal, and then they kept getting closer every day. So we knew that we knew that something was happening out there. And then another day, about a day later, well, we heard the tanks coming, and it was the 776th Armored Outfit had came up there to liberate us. The reason they had fought their way through many miles, I don't know how many, of German, we were in German territory, they fought their way all the way in there to liberate us at the camp. And excuse me, and when they got in there, there was a great big pull gate on our camp there, and the tanks came in, knocked the gate down. They didn't bother to open it or anything. And as soon as they got in there, well, the guys in the tanks jumped out of the tanks, and anybody from California, anybody from Utah, anybody from Idaho, yeah. And excuse me, and there was a fellow in there from a little town, a little community, or Riverside, that was right next to the little community of Groveland out there. I didn't know him personally, but he knew my family there. And anyway, and his name was Ruel. And he said, I will send a letter by V-mail to my folks, and they can call your folks and tell them you're okay. Because one thing that I had done all the time I was a prisoner in there was to pray that my mother would know that I was okay. And anyway, I knew that my parents would be receiving a letter from the War Department, missing in action, and I didn't know if my mother could handle that. So anyway, he agreed to, he wrote a V-mail letter. I guess we don't have time to describe V-mail, but anyway, it was Army mail that went through Army and went through Army whatever, and they received this telephone call from his parents telling them that I was okay.
And how long was it before they got you from where you were a prisoner to home?
Didn't take very long. From home, from 3 or 4 days after that, they put us in trucks, and we went to an R&R camp called Camp Lucky Strike, and that was one of the contributions that the tobacco company made for the war effort. And at Camp Lucky Strike, we all had warm beds. We had all the food we could get 24 hours a day. Lots of things to practice and do at the art.
And this was in what country?
It was in, they flew us to it was in France, just from there to France. And anyway, we were there, I suppose, about 10 days, and they loaded us on trucks again, and took us to where we got on a Liberty ship, and we started home. We came home on one of the small Liberty ships across the ocean to New York, and we were some of the first POWs that got back to the United States, and we were really greeted in New York there, and we were there for a few days, and they let us go to a pass in downtown New York, and I went to three of us went to, and we saw what's the name of the glamour girls there? What are they?
The Rockettes.
The Rockettes.
Mhm.
We saw the Rockettes that night.
And then they sent you home?
And then at the Rockettes, we were in the front row there because we were GIs. And all at once they said, "We want a soldier up there," and my two guys on each side of me give me a big old push, and I landed up on this stage up there with the Rockettes. Anyway, and we came home by train back to Ogden, Utah. This time why we had bunks, overnight bunks, and we were treated royally coming home. And then when I arrived home in Ogden, when my brother picked me up there and took me over to his place, and then the next day he took me up to my folks' home in Blackfoot, and that was a great. How much more time do we have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, on behalf of a grateful nation, I would like to thank you for coming in and telling your story. I just wish we had another hour to sit and listen,
Okay.
but we do want to thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thank you. My privilege.
So this book is the prayer book that you took with you.
Yes. This is the book that the church provided for their soldiers in the war, and it has scriptures in it, and
What's on the back? What's written here?
written there are all the food that I was going to eat when I got home.
And you wrote this in the POW
And I
camp.
wrote this when I was in the POW camp. Yes, I did.
And then we have your uniform. You've got your...
This is the 94th Infantry Division. I was made a corporal later after I went back in after my 60-day leave. I was made a corporal. This is the Good Conduct Medal. This is my POW medal, and these are battles. These are areas that we were in, the Ardennes,
Arding.
forest, and there were three battle. There are three battle. What do you call them? Stars. That means that we were in three battles in the Ardennes forest. This is my good conduct, or my combat infantry badge, the one I'm the most proud of.
And your dog tags.
Oh, my dog tags, right. Oh, my dog tags right here. Okay.